Hi, it's Dave. Today I'm going to be talking about putting together a Shelee Art Style balloon. The recipe from the bottom up. It's going to include not only the how to mix them, but the products that I use to mix mine. It's the easiest pouring medium that I've found so far, and by having, where at least for U.S. painters, you're going to be able to find these at Lowe's and Home Depot. So I'm going to get right down to it and we'll get started. Okay, this is Dave, and today we're going to be talking about what I use for my pouring medium. Now, this is, for me, has been the pouring medium that has been the most simple, because frankly, it's when I get to the pouring medium, you're going to see that it has only two components, sometimes only one. I'm going to go through each layer of the balloon technique. I'm going to talk about the pillow paint, I'm going to talk about the pouring medium, and I'm going to talk about how you mix each one of the different type of paints you might have. And last, I'm going to talk about your cell activator. So let's get started. Okay, our main component that I'm going to use for my pouring medium is Valspar Ultra. Valspar Ultra, I get it at Lowe's. It's the only place you can get it. It's a high gloss base C. I don't know if you can see that down there. Base C. It does have a number you can refer to. It's 833124. And again, when you go to the paint department at Lowe's, they're going to try to tell you that, oh, no, this has to be tinted before you leave this. No, it doesn't have to be tinted. Just let them know that that's how you want it. That's how you're going to use it. So don't let them buffalo you on that. Now, when I make up my pouring mediums, that is my main ingredient. And by main ingredient, I mean and for a lot of them, it's the only thing I use. With my heavy body paints, that's all I need. So I'll show you when I need to add a thickening. Generally speaking, when I use my pigments, I have to thicken it up a bit because the pigments as a whole are much thinner because of the way they have to be handled. We're going to talk about that. This is Bear Dynasty. I just recently went to this. It is an interior semi-gloss enamel, and it is, let me see, it is a deep base. That number, in case you were looking for it, is 3653. But let me tell you, that this is a Home Depot item. It's the only place you can get it, is Home Depot. So you have two places you have to go for this. This is, frankly, I use very little of this stuff. I mean, when I use it, it's just a simple little dollop. So we'll talk about that when you get to it. Okay, those are the two things you're going to need for your pouring medium. Last thing we're going to talk about is how I go about making up my the pigments. So let's get started. I'm going to pour, so let's get started actually mixing paints. I'm going to start with my thickest paint first. This, change of plan here, this is Amsterdam Titanium Buff. I had to look for it because it's definitely not the where it usually is. It's down here, Titanium Buff. This is a heavy body paint, and one of the reasons I use heavy body paints is because it's much easier to find my consistency very quickly. Grab myself a popsicle stick because this is going to be a little different. Notice how thick that is. I mean, that is extremely thick. So I'm gonna just pull a dollop in here. Not much, that's about it. See how fast that's moving up there. And what I'm going to do to that is use my Valspar. I'm going to just right out of the can. I would suggest if you're not going to do a lot of blooming, don't buy the big gallon can. Get a quart can. It'll work just the same. The number might be slightly different, but it'll be exactly what I use. You can see that's maybe half a part of what I put in the paint. There's a full part. This is an eyeball. I already knew this was going to be too thick, but I wanted to incorporate that before I did anything else. You can see that's actually way too thick. Let me show this down here. That is way too thick. So we're going to continue to mix this. I'm going to add about the same amount of pouring medium, or the Valspar. Mix that up a little bit. That's much closer. You can see it's coming off. It's leaving a mound there, but that mound is not going to last very long. You can see bubbles. Now let's look at the difference of the two, how it pours out. And you see that it is immediately flattening out, pretty close to immediately. And so we have the two paints. So you want this consistency here. That is what you're going to need. So that's with a very thick body paint, heavy body paint. That is probably the easiest one to find. So keep that in mind. I'm going to put that off to the side. Okay, now we're going to do the same process for the next paint. This is golden Quinacridone magenta, and this is in their fluid version. So you can hear it. It's much thinner, and basically it's mixed the same way, but we may have to play with it. So I'm going to add just a little bit. You don't need as much with this stuff because, frankly, it's highly concentrated, as are all of these paints that I'm using. I tend to use paints and pigments that are highly pigmented. So that's the whole point. Okay, so this is a thin body. I'm going to just put the same, I'm going to start out exactly the same way. And just put a little bit in here. About the same amount that I had with the first time. And right now, because of the fluid looks like it's much less. So that's probably as much as I'm going to need with that. I'll mix it up. You can see how fast that incorporated. And now, here's the test. If we look at this, you can see that it comes right off that spoon very fast. So chances are I'm going to need to do something with that in order to thicken up a little bit. So, show you what that looks like here. See, it's very thin. It's going right into the paint. I mean, it's not as thin as a lot of styles, but that's thin for the Shelee Art Style. So I'm going to take this, and in order to thicken it up a little bit, I'm going to add some of the Bear Dynasty. And you'll be able to see here how thick this really is. It's leaving more than a trace, and it's not really going away. Now, they used to use the 8300, the Bear 8300. It's hard to find. Can't find it in a lot of places. This is available pretty much everywhere that Home Depot is, at least here in the States. So you see the consistency of that. That's going to help me here because I don't need a lot, but I need to thicken it up enough so that that our paint is the same consistency what we already put in here. So let's look at that. Better. There we go. That's about the same consistency. And let's look at how that looks coming down the. So you can see it. It mounds up and then flattens out. Now look at those two colors. You might say, well, geez, that one's a little bit. That color is a little bit different. It's not to worry about. The Dynasty is a clear, deep base, so it's going to dry. It's going to dry clear. So don't worry about if it goes a little bit pastel on you. Not important because it will be fine. So that's the fluid. Now the last one I'm going to do is probably the trickery or the group. So this is this little piggy unicorn, and this is a pigment powder. Be very careful with this because your pigments are a lot more, well, they will put up powder very quickly. You don't want to breathe that stuff. Okay, here we go. As you can see, it is a definite powder. Normally I would have at least an N95 mask on, something to filter out the particulates that hit the air. I did get a little bit in the air. I think I'm far enough away, and I'm going to be very, very careful when I mix this. So we have to start this. One of the things that with pigments is you have to wet them in order to release or start the pigment from releasing. So I use GAC 100. So with the GAC 100, it's a binder. So it's going to help bind those pigments. It also allows us to wet them. So you don't need a whole lot. Not a whole lot at all. I'm just you can see how fluid that is. I mean, it's basically a liquid. And I'm just going to put enough down there. Get my fluid going. You want it basically after you're done to be the consistency, on the other side, the consistency of your fluid paint, the magenta. And it takes a little bit of time to incorporate. So don't be in a hurry. And what I'm looking for there, I'm looking for that pigment to flatten out. So you can see that there's no granulars left. There's no grain left there. I'm gonna add just a little bit more GAC, not a lot though. There we go. So there you have it. That's a good starting point. See that the grains are gone, and it's fluid but not too thick, too thin. So just like we did with the magenta, I'm going to add my Valspar Ultra to it. I'm just going to go ahead and put in, because I know I'm going to need at least that much. Okay. So as you can see, I'm going by feel. I know what the consistent needs to feel like more than anything else. Sometimes they look like they're thicker than what they actually are, or thicker or thinner than what they actually look like. I look at that, I know for a fact that that's too thin. So I'm going to go ahead and give you that first test dollop. You can see how that comes off the spoon and how it flattens out almost immediately. So I'm going to need to thicken that up just a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the last one. Enough just so that you can see it, and I'm going to thicken it up just a little bit. And you can see now our consistency is about the same. So let's put that down so you can see it pour off the spoon. Holds its shape a little bit. Now you notice it got a little more pastel, but that's okay because it's not going to stay that way. There we go. We got our 3 paints that are basically the same consistency. I'm going to tilt these so you can see them run. This is the thinner of the two. Notice that, this is the thinner of the two. Notice that one's still running. See how that works. I might have just had more, and in fact I know I had more. This is the same thing, going to be the same consistency. But this one is going to run more because of the larger dollop. You can see this one's outpacing it. Okay, and last but not least is the heavy body. Now the first one, the one on this side, is probably not going to move hardly at all. But I'm noticing that my finished dollop looks like it's too thicker than what the other two are. So I'll show you what I do when that happens. So it's good that that did happen. I'm looking at the consistency again. And it has thickened up a little bit. So when that happens for me, I go back to my handy dandy GAC 100 and just put a little bit in there. Now some people put water in here, but I don't like to degrade my pigments with water. So that's my main reason for not using it. Better. Let's see how well that moves. Okay, here we go. You can see immediately it starts to move. So that's how you fix that. So that's your paint layers. Have any questions about that? Please leave them down in the comments, and I will answer all questions. So I'm going to close everything up, and I'll be right back. Okay, next thing I'm going to show you is our cell activator. I'm going to only do 2 colors today. I have been known to use also deep gold. But today, just the titanium white and my carbon black. I always use highly pigmented. These are both Amsterdam products. They're known for their pigmentation. I've used other things. Tri-Art works beautifully. And I've actually had pretty good success with the Nova Color carbon black also. So there are other options, but I use these because I know the consistencies of them. Consistencies with your cell activator is very important. You have your paints, high pigmentation paints, and I use the infamous Australian Floetrol. Expensive stuff. This little bottle actually is hard to find. The liter bottle of this is what I fill these up with. But the consistency, these do not The Australian Floetrol doesn't stay good forever. So, you know, as small a bottle as you possibly can get, because not only is it expensive, but a little tiny bit is what you use. And so by the time you get to the bottom of this bottle, there's a possibility it's going to start going bad on you. And it just gets thinner and it doesn't work as well. So if you let it go too long, it'll start stinking like sour milk. So careful with this stuff. It's expensive, yes. Is effective, yes. Can you use American Floetrol? Absolutely. There are recipes out on the web. You can look to Jody of the Painted Dreamer. She has an excellent recipe for that American Floetrol cell activator. Louise McKay has also a very good recipe, which is very similar to Jody's. So look to those artists, and I'll put that down in the description so you can find them. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the white. I use this big tub because mainly main reason is I bought it way back at the beginning, thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to use a lot of titanium white. Well, I do, but as time has gone on, this white has gotten so thick, so it takes more work to get it going. Now, see how much paint I put in there? It's really, I mean, it's just a large dollop of paint. It's I mean, maybe a half a teaspoon, maybe. So I'm going to add to that about 2 to 3 times that with the Australian Floetrol. So there's 1 times that. I'm going to mix it up. The reason why I pulled up is for you to be able to see the consistencies on it. The white is the hardest to see. It's not gonna show up very well at all. That's actually just a little too thick. This is gonna be, I think it's gonna be a 2-day. That's kind of what it's feeling like. You don't want it too thin. You also don't want it too thick because it won't move. So that's about right. You can see the consistency looks a lot more fluid here than what you saw with the other. But because of the density that the Floetrol adds, it'll sink faster, and that's how the cells are formed. It's just a matter of the cell activator being denser. Part of that is the pigmentation. Part of that big part of that is the Floetrol. So I'm going to put that aside. Don't worry, we will do a test on how well these work. Now I'm going to do the black, mainly because you can see how it works better. Now this, because it's in a different size container, is going to be, you can see it's a little thinner, not a whole lot. I don't want to put a whole lot in here. You can see me put it in. There we go. You can see how much is in there. Not a whole heck of a lot. Again, about a half a teaspoon. Don't take that too literally. Think mostly in when I do parts, and try to go equal parts. And I'm going to start out with this one because it's a little thinner, but not a whole lot. I'm going to start out with this one with 1. Get it started. That's just a little bit more than 1. More like 1.5. Mix it up nice and I don't know you're going to be able to see that. That's how it looks in the cup. You can see that it's leaving a little bit of a mound, which I'll guarantee is going to be too thick. So I'm going to just add basically another dollop in here. You can put it down. You see how it comes off the spoon. And let's compare the two. My white feels like it's a little thinner. And let's do the tilt test. The white is just a little thinner. Could also be the gravity, how much I put down. But they're pretty close to the same. Close enough to the same that I think they'll work just fine. I may add just a little more paint to the white if I need to. And that's how you thicken that back up. So, now, one thing that I didn't talk about when I started was the one paint that is vital to doing a blue. And that is our pillow paint. Our pillow paint that I use and have used quite some time is Multi-Pro in eggshell. I get this at Home Depot. It's, you can see 47-3110. This paint has been my go-to for a while. Kind of have to watch it because sometimes it'll get bubbles. And as you get older, it will get thinner if you don't mix it. And then also introduces bubbles. But you can see the consistency of it. And that feels just a little thin. That could be because right now I'm down in Arizona. And Arizona, all my paints tend to get a little bit thin as the heat goes up. Okay, and that's about what I put down when I'm doing one of these little tiles. I'm gonna get my spinner and we'll do the next part. I'm gonna lay down my opaque paint first, which is my titanium buff. Doesn't take a lot, but your pillow paint is of the consistency to hold up these paints. That's its whole purpose. It has no other purpose other than to make sure that the paint doesn't sink right away. So the consistency of that is what it's about. I'm gonna now go with this is my pigment, transparent. And last, the color layer, the second layer, the color layer, is going to be my magenta, which is also a semi-transparent. 3 colors. And as you saw, I put down the most of my base color, then a little bit less of my middle color, and the least of my my top color. Top color is going to show through, the bottom color is going to show through. That third color, that middle color, is going to kind of give it some depth. And I'm going to start with the white, not much. You see, automatically you start that halo that starts. I'm going to add just a little bit of the carbon black on top of this. Not much. Just to give you that double cell activator look. So I'm going to blow this out. I'm blowing directly down on it and trying to spread out the cell activator. Now out to the side, I'm aiming towards the edge of it to pull it out. I overblew just a little bit there. Now you notice my blue almost entirely disappeared, but it's in there because that's my bling color. See it in here. Now I usually at this point will cover my corners because I want to make sure my paint actually is covering most of the tile before I start. Karen Durskin calls these her bikini corners. I think that's very apt name for them. All these names I'm mentioning, I'll put links down in the description. Okay, let's give this a soft spin. Okay. Get my little points that are not have any paint on them ahead of time. All I'm doing is getting the sides so the paint will actually flow off. Because my next spin is much harder. And I'm spinning to get the extra paint off. Okay. Not that much paint there. You can see there's not that much on there. I should give you a little closer look of that. You can see I got some pretty decent cells there. Is this a good tile? Not really, because that middle color is so, you're not going to see it until I actually resin this, because that's when the colors will pop. And my titanium buff is, although it's a very strong color, you'll see it, but it's really not that pronounced. So what you see mostly here is the magenta and the cell activators. So let me put this aside.
Okay, this is the third and final one
change this
that I
up
did.
just a little bit.
For time's sake, I cut to the last one, and I'm going to show you how I put this together. Speed it up just a little bit, so you'll be watching a little bit fast, and I'll come back at the end. We'll talk about the final results. Here we go.
Take a closer look. You can see those cells. The formation of cells is much better with the black down on the bottom. Tells me I need to add just a little bit of paint to that titanium white cell activator. This is the first one we did. It pretty much is monochromatic. You can see a little bit of the blue over on this side right here. But generally speaking, it didn't have a lot of variation. and that's because there really was only 3 paints. Our second one we did was when I added the turquoise and the yellow. You see, just the added addition of those those two colors made a huge difference. The cell activator still is needing some work on this one because it was the white down first. So then I changed it up and went over to with the black on the bottom, changed up the color how I laid them down, got a totally different look. You notice that those cells on the black really are they're doing a number. And I really like that. And then finally, our last one. It's got beautiful cells. The colors are better. I probably could have done a better blow. I would have had less of the white on the outside. But frankly, pillow coming through doesn't bother me as much as it does some other people. So that is the video for today. I am simply making this video to help those who want to try blooming to get there. This video, although it can be used for anybody, was put together specifically for Nate's Art Lab Patreon group. And the main reason is there's a challenge coming up next month that a lot of them had asked questions about how to get the bloom recipe together. So that's what this was all about. I'm hoping that you found it very useful, and let me know down in the comments what you think. And please, as always, strike that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.